Hey everybody, it's Steve. Sorry for the late delay today, the late start, whatever. I was taking my earpieces out because they don't like to cooperate some days, and today's one of those days. Oh, come on, squeaky things. Anyway, all right. So what I wanted to talk about today, obviously I'm not in the office, so I'm doing this remotely. Mostly I wanted to see what questions you guys had because I've been kind of preaching and randomizing and whatever. So someone asked yesterday, what is the process for um, finding a new market that might be of interest to making deals in? Basically, how do we decide what markets we go into? And in the self-storage industry, in other industries, it's fairly structured. You go off of population base and metrics and values of rentals versus whatever. There's sort of a system to it. In the wholesale residential world, it's a little less specific because the bottom line is in the residential world, single 1 through 4 units, and even the lower end multi units, 5 through say 25. I mean, pretty much wherever people are living, there's going to be demand. And pretty much wherever there's demand, there's going to be people who need to get out of their homes for whatever reason. And I'll tell you a quick story of a deal Ryan and I just did. And it's one of these deals so the short version is we put the house under contract for 90 and we're selling it for 120 or 115 in less than 48 hours of having it. So it's, $25,000. I think I was there on Friday, and we signed the contract with the buyer Monday. So it was very quick. Sorry, I realize I'm looking away from the camera. That's not very nice. And on the same time, it was one of those deals that feels like it took forever. The seller in this case was very unusual, had some unusual motivations, some unusual requests. The short version is we signed the deal up for 100, but if we gave him $2,500 like right away, he would drop the price to 90. So we worked with his attorney, who also had title, to get title confirmation that the money was there on the deal, and so we could give him the extra $2,500. And it was just a lot of back and forth on that that part of the topic. And then the other variable was that the buyer wanted to close like yesterday, but of course the seller needs a place to live. So we had some negotiations on that part of it as well, where the buyer still got to close because of tax reasons and the seller gets to possibly stay for a couple more months. And there were just a lot of moving parts in it. But as for a stress level, I mean, it wasn't bad. Certainly it was, nothing to complain about, but it was a lot of hours. It was probably 15 hours between Friday and today. And that would be 15. I know I put in 15. Ryan probably put in another 5 or maybe 10. Who knows? We're not comparing that, but it was just a lot of chats, a lot of rigmarole, a lot of stuff that isn't usually done. However, then you sit back and say, okay, 25 hours, maybe $25,000. Okay, that's $1,000 an hour. My attorney doesn't make $1,000 an hour. And there's always people in that situation. There's always people who have to get out of a property faster. There's always people who have to whatever. And so the residential world is a little bit easier to find deals. It's a hell of a lot more competitive too. You got to remember, almost everyone, when they say I'm a wholesaler, they're wholesaling the same stuff we are. Okay, so I don't know. I know of a dozen fairly comfortably substantial wholesalers in this small puddle of a market in northeastern Pennsylvania. There's probably another 2 dozen I don't know, or other companies that get deals here or something. There's probably a lot of them. So basically, when you move to the commercial side of things, that would be very large multifamily. That would be land. That would be, which is kind of its own bubble. That would be self-storage, mobile home parks, RV parks, anything else, basically. The number of buyers and sellers are smaller. They just are. And they're much more dollar motivated, meaning there can still be motivated sellers who are going to sell for less than it's worth, but it's a math game. There's no emotion. And the deals take longer, typically. Typically, commercial deals can take 3, 6, 9 months, with lots of rigmarole in the middle. The spreads are bigger. You can make $250,000 spread on a self-storage facility. But, so you sort of trade it if you go in those directions. You trade fewer deals for larger deals. And no reason you have to pick which way you go. You can go either way, but they're definitely different. In the self-storage world, for example, we only want to transact, although, okay, let me be clear. If a seller is motivated enough, we will transact anything below its market value. So even in a market that I just made an offer on a property on Lewis Run, Pennsylvania, which is, it's not even a map dot. Okay, let's be perfectly honest. There's nothing in Lewis Run. That's a total population of 500 people. But it was 30-something storage units and 7 mobiles on one piece of property. And so we did the math, and we beat the math up a little bit because it's not a market of great potential. It's actually a market that's declining. And said, okay, if they're willing to take this number, they're willing to take this number. That's it. It's a math game. But normally I'm looking for a market that has value to increase. I'm looking for some other things. And so before you go looking to another market, we work in all of Pennsylvania, primarily Northeast, Central East, Southeast, and Southwest Pennsylvania. But we do deals all over the state. As long as, we learn about the market and have comfort there. And we do Eastern Ohio. Other markets kind of come to us and talk about it. What I say you don't want to do is you don't want to be like, I'm in Tulsa today. I'm in, Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow. I'm in this, I'm in that. You're not like randomly picking communities, because can people do that? Can you virtually wholesale nationwide? Sure. But remote comps are difficult. The software gives you the answer. They're not difficult in that way. But remote comps are difficult, and they give you but they only give you numbers, and if you don't know neighborhoods, so you want to learn about a market. So I say learn where you're looking to be, and we'll go from there. We will help you if you want to find other markets, especially if you live somewhere else. If you live in Virginia, I know one of you guys lives out in Long Island, and you're like, hey, I want to work my own market. Great, no problem. And we'll give you all the support in the world. But that's the difference between the residential and the commercial. There's more activity on the residential. There's more sellers and more buyers. The numbers are smaller. The deals are more frequent. Commercial, numbers are bigger. Deals are slower. In fact, I actually was not a facility I'm buying or selling, but I was at a self-storage facility, which is an active in Fall River, I think, Massachusetts. My friend, we literally were just loading into my friend's self-storage unit. And he's like, you notice the corrosion on the walls? I'm like, kinda. He's like, there's a Superfund site cleanup going on directly beneath us. Superfund is like super dangerous land. Someone did a really big job poisoning it, and it became the government's problem. And so we're actually on an active Superfund site. And okay, and I actually asked my self-storage mentor, I said, how did they transact a Superfund site? He said, it happens. He said, depending on the rules or whatever, but he said 90% chance someone didn't do an environmental survey. So anyway, another question came in is, how do we handle people who are not licensed, or maybe who are not in this country? Not licensed is easy. We pay you as a consultant. No problem. Not in this country. kind of the same thing for we've got one person down in Nigeria. I mean, it's a lot more harder for you to do the work from that place, but we just need to find a method. We usually use WISE, WISE, which is an international payment system. Any other questions, guys? I'm only on for a little bit today because obviously I'm in my car. Okay, so the CRM, so tomorrow is about brokerage training for licensees. Tuesday is about training on the CRM. It's a 2-hour training class. So it's going to be intensive. It's going to take you through everything you're going to need to know. Now, one other thing is a little bit about the so we're in the wholesale business. We are not in the business of being someone's agent. I am not their fiduciary, whatever. However, and normally there's no inspections. However, I'm just going to share with you what you can get into when you do no inspections on a property. I am buying myself for one of my investments a single piece of land with 3 separate houses on it in Harvey's Lake, Pennsylvania. And I normally just bring out a contractor and we do a quick walk through the property and make sure we don't see anything absurd. This time I decided to add a sewer camera inspection because I just knew the town was considering them. So I figured, okay, let me know what's here. The inspector brings out what a sewer cleanout guy would call a wimpy camera, meaning it's simply a camera stuck on the end of a coax line. It's for the purpose, but it can't take abuse. And he runs it down. Immediately we see the water backing up, like running a little sink water, and it's filling up faster than it should. Obviously, a sewer line should empty itself. And he runs his camera down and hits a certain point and can't go any further. Again, he has a wimpy camera. He's like, maybe this is something I could push through, but whatever. So anyway, I'm bringing back a more advanced camera guy to whatever. But when we have our buyers, and this is why the whole point of this is why as wholesalers we have to be very careful in our pricing, and why flippers have to be careful, because that's not something you're going to see. You're going to go in the house, you're going to flush the toilet, you're going to run the sink for a while and say, oh, water goes away. Great, we're happy. And you're not going to know this. So you have to build in your plans for things that your buyer, the flipper, is not going to know into the deal. And it's the risk I took. You know what? If I close on, if I had skipped the sewer inspection and then I buy the house and the sewer's fucked up, that's my problem. There's no going back and saying, well, my problem. So that's why when we're pricing things, we have to price them at a bit of a discount, because we know what we can see. We don't know what we can't see. And we just have to explain to our people, our sellers, and say, hey, yeah, you could do better. And this is one of the reasons you could do better on the open market, because there will be full inspections and yada, yada, yada. Also, on that, we have to always keep in mind that the buyer is going to be a repeat buyer for us. There's no question. So while we respect the seller and we, want to do right by them, the buyer's our repeat client. So like, they're not our client. We don't owe them anything, but we have to, if we're going to lean in a direction, we lean in that direction. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow at 11:30 for a brokerage training. Thanks, guys.